Should I get this thing off? I do this. Hey everybody, welcome back to another Wealth Management Advisory Club meeting. We had a prestige, honor, and privilege of having Goldman Sachs Ayco come in here today. More familiar with Chris Wunke coming in. Some of you may knows him. He was here when Teague came in last semester to talk to Teague and also WMA. So guys, please give me your undivided attention. Please turn on your cameras if possible and ask a lot of questions. And with that, Chris, we'll leave it all to you. You actually can't over right there.
I look there, basically.
Yeah, the cameras right there, cameras are over there. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. I don't know if I'll be able to look directly up the whole time, but I'll try to do that. So, and people can be able to interact.
Yes, and we definitely will direct via the Zoom card we have here. So
excellent. Because what you'll see a lot of times, if you haven't already, whenever someone comes in, a lot of times things are going to work better if it is a dialogue. So stop me as I'm going along. I'm just going to tell you about who I am, what I do, what we do at Goldman Sachs, kind of where I fit. And then just honestly, there's just some pieces of advice I have as a relatively, call it young professional, that I look back and think about the pieces of advice I was given that seemed to work. So the introduction, as Jack said, my name is Chris Winter. When I say I was literally sitting in your seats, I graduated from FDU in 2007 with my undergrad. So I was literally here. I can tell you the halls don't look any different as you'd expect. So 2007, so I was at Professor Englander's offices right next door. I had Betts and Dr. Denning and Bob Lang for stats and Shu. And so a lot of the professors that I had, I actually took a look, are still here, which is kind of interesting. But after I graduated with my undergrad in economics, I went right through and got my MBA. So I actually worked in the bottom here as in the undergraduate advising office where I would help students register for classes. Went right through and got my MBA and did take some classes at the Metro campus. So more familiar with this campus, but I've been over there and I used to live over by the campus. After I graduated with my MBA, I went to work for Ernst & Young, now they call themselves EY, doing financial planning, more so for the rank and file employees, as opposed to executives, higher net worth folks that I deal with now. But I was there for about 6 years, got my certified financial planner, CFP, as well as my enrolled agent, which is a tax license, for those of you not familiar. I learned a lot, saw a lot, did a lot while I was there. I actually moved to Tampa for a year. I actually had to reach out to all my friends from there this morning to see how they're doing and familiar with the hurricane down there. But I was there for a year. So after about 6 years, I jumped ship to Ayco, which is now part of Goldman Sachs. So Ayco, the subsidiary of Goldman Sachs, has been around for almost 50 years. Okay, we were bought by Goldman Sachs in 2004. As of January 1, 2021, we're no longer a wholly owned subsidiary. We're just an arm of Goldman. So they fully absorbed us, if that makes sense. But we've been doing the same job. So I work in our executive financial management, EFM. Okay, working with executives. Okay, when I say that, right, our business model is we go out to companies, okay, and we tell them to say, listen, your executives are busy, they're making a lot of money. We found that they generally don't have time to pay attention to their own finances. Okay, so we get the company to pay for financial advising services for those executives. So essentially, it's a little bit of a different business model. There's a lot of advising roles out there where you got to cold call, you got to be getting clients, and dialing, to make your revenue. That's not really the case. I'm giving clients, right? Now, when you retire or you leave that company, generally you'll stay on as an individual pay client, and then you go to the next company, you get us an introduction, we get a program there. That's how our business has thrived for 50 years. So prior to today, I bet you, no one ever really heard of Ayco. That's because we've never really advertised, we've never really needed to advertise. But we've done really, we've grown every year for 50 years. Enough about that. So day in the life, what does that mean? Right? So I am a financial advisor at heart. If I'm telling someone in one line, what do I do? That's what I tell them. What does that mean? I look at their investments, right? We're Goldman Sachs. We clearly have access to a world-class investment program. Taxes. Well, one thing that I think sets us apart is we do perform tax preparation. So those of you that are familiar, the 10-15 deadlines right around the corner means we're very busy around this time of year. But aside from the tax preparation, there's also the tax planning, right? Making sure that there's not going to be any kind of surprises next April, right? That's an important part of one's plan. Quite frankly, it's not a revenue generator, so a lot of other firms out there don't do it. Estate planning, insurance, retirement planning, company benefits, it really falls under that umbrella of financial advisor, right? So I would say if your parents have someone, or you know someone who has a financial advisor, if they're not checking off all these boxes, I'd say you're really getting what you're paying for, right? So a day in the life, this morning I started, prepping for an annuity call in the afternoon, and that quickly got me derailed by one of my clients' tax returns was ready, so I had to do a final review. But that's not to say I was getting ready for the retirement analysis that I'm preparing tomorrow. It's all very dynamic. Generally, each day is different, which most people tend to like. It gets into some of my advice for my younger self. We have a segment at Goldman where it's called Letters to My Younger Self, right? What didn't you know? What do you know that you wish you did? Right? Number one, nobody teaches you organization. Okay. What do I mean by that? That falls into a lot of different, could fall into a lot of different things, but oh hey, sorry, I missed that in my email, or if I ask you if you're going to get a task done by Wednesday afternoon, and it's not on my desk by Wednesday afternoon, I don't want to have to hunt you down for the work that I asked you to do, right? If you're going to call a client at 4 p.m., you better call that client at 4 p.m. A lot of this seems very straightforward. Unfortunately, you'd be surprised at how something like that kind of just falls off the radar. Bring solutions, not problems, right? Nobody needs another problem pointer out, right? And an organization is going to have plenty of them, right? For the folks on my team, if they come to me with a problem, I want to hear the 3 or 4 different ways that you tried to solve that problem before you got to me, right? Did you use your resources? Did you ask other folks? Did you kind of just step back and think about it for that? Bring solutions, not problems, you'll get through. Number 3, sometimes that's why they call it work, right? My dad told me when I was entering the real world, listen, nobody loves going to work. Okay, actors and baseball players and nobody likes going to work. You also can't hate what you do every day, right? You got to find something that you generally enjoy doing most of the time, right? Sometimes that's why I call it work. There's going to be good days and bad days. Enjoy the good days. Know that they're not going to be always good days. Try to learn from the bad days. Okay? Sometimes that's why they call it work and not vacation. Not every day is going to be great, but important lesson too. Sometimes work stinks. Push your own career. You're going to find mentors throughout your career that are going to help you, friends. You're going to find coworkers that become friends, and some even cross the line to be really good friends, right? The people that you invite to your wedding and that you hang out with on the weekends, not just the work happy hour, right? But push your own career. No one will advocate for you as much as you, okay? I had a conversation with one of my good friends who's crossed the line and is a good friend to me. And we talk about, we're both somewhat relatively new. We always have relatively new analysts on our team supporting us. So we talk about, what are you going through? How do you handle it? I can tell you the first time that you need to have your performance isn't really what I expected conversation. It's never like when you prepare for it in a classroom or with a friend. The person's getting visibly upset. It's not as easy, right? But push your own career, right? Things like, are you taking initiative, right? Are you finding ways to make yourself stand out? I had to tell the person on my team earlier this year, you're not doing a bad job. You're not doing anything to stand out. And you can tell that's not easy to hear, right? When you hear you're very middle of the pack, nobody wants to hear that, right? Find ways to make yourself stand out. Someone I work with says, listen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'll challenge that and say, if it ain't broke, break it and put it back together better. Right? Always kind of thing, and I tell the person on my team, whenever I have downtime, I almost feel guilty. I start thinking about what should I be doing? What could I be doing? When you have those moments to breathe, start thinking outside the box. It's easy to get lost in the shuffle of the day. Be like those you admire. You're going to have good bosses and bad bosses throughout your career, right? Don't forget the bad bosses. Remember them too. Remember what you didn't like about them. Try not to be that person. I've worked with plenty of people, the minute they get out of the job where they got to do a lot of the grunt work, they forgot how to do the grunt work. I know that's not the case, right? Be like those you admire, okay? For me, the folks that I admire truly never remembered what it was, or never forgot about what it was like to be brand new and still learning things, right? The generals that I worked for that I most admire never forgot what it was like to be a soldier. Okay? Show up early. Okay? Seems self-explanatory. Okay? We live in a world with an increasing hybrid environment and a work-life balance. I'm going to get to that. And actually, I have that on here. So, show up early. Everyone notices the early person. Okay? I was the early person. And I accelerated faster than some others in my career. There's a gentleman now who's there at 7 a.m. every day, and I can tell you, I told him, I said, listen, the senior guy that sits right where you are, he notices you're here every day. And that's a good thing. Okay, listen, there was a guy I worked with that used to come in at 9, our workday started at 8. I knew he worked till 7 o'clock. I did. I didn't work till 7 o'clock. I was there at 7 in the morning. I worked till 5 or 6. Okay. Show up early. And like I said, we're in an environment of hybrid work environment and work-life balance. One of the things that I'll challenge you to do, and it'll probably be hard to answer this until you actually get to the real world and your life starts changing. But there's no clear definition of what work-life balance means. Right? What does it mean to you? To me, it means that sometimes life is going to need to take a little bit of preference, right? You have a baby, you're buying a house, you have a sick relative, right? Things like that. I'm not talking about vacation. You should be taking vacation time off anyway, right? Sometimes life happens and you're going to need to dedicate more time. But where I think I differ, sometimes I realize that work is going to take a little bit more. Okay? I mentioned we prepare taxes forever. All right, I personally have a worse April than I do October. That means that March is generally not a lot of free time for me. There was a couple of weekends where my wife took our daughter and went to the in-laws' house and had a good time. I stayed home and worked. Happens. But to me, right, I've also taken a call on Sunday, especially during football season now. I'll tell you, I enjoy having the TV on, just doing a little bit of work, catching up, because that hour and a half, 2 hours that I put in on a weekend, where nothing else is coming in and there's no other work distractions, that's equivalent to about 3 or 4 hours on Monday mornings, right? And I was in a position one time where I emailed it was an older client, retired, he's 84. And I said, Ed, why don't you call me right now? I replied to his email right away. And he goes, Chris, it's Sunday, I don't mean to bother you, you got your daughter. I said, Ed, I take this so that when I need to leave at 2 to go to a dentist on Wednesday, I just do it, right? I can tell you my wife's definition is not like mine. Hers is I will do my work at the allotted time, and if I need to use some of that time for personal things, so be it. There's nothing wrong with either definition. You're going to find certain companies have, you need to make sure your definition is aligned with the company that you choose. Okay, and that can change over time, right? I'm still a morning person. I still like to get my work done in the morning. I drop our daughter off at daycare, so it kind of kills me that I'm walking in the office at 8:30 when I used to be there at 7. Life changes. Okay, particularly important earlier on. When you think nobody is watching you, they are. Okay, so same example, right? Coming in at 8:15 when you're supposed to be there at 8 every day, right? No one said anything. It's easy just to kind of keep falling into that pattern. When you think nobody's noticing, they are. Whether they say things or not, they are. Several times in my career, right when I was getting to the point where, man, I feel like I've been doing a really good job. I haven't really gotten a pay raise or any kind of promotion. Immediately after that, I got the promotion. All right, I hadn't really received anything or had any warning about that. When you think people are not watching, they are indeed watching. When I say people, it's your coworkers, okay, it's your bosses, it's the people below you too, right? When you're a role model, people see you, right? When you think they notice or not. Give back, right? Whether it's helping the new guy, whether it's doing things like this, right? Give back. I said it's never too soon to start giving back, because chances are 6 months into your job, there's going to be a new class right behind you. You're no longer the new guy, right? Whenever we get a class of new people, I'll order pizza and take them in our conference room and just say, hey, I'm Chris. Here's a couple other people to meet. Now they know somebody. Guess what? People remember you for those kinds of things. So give back. Find different ways to do that, whether it's, hey, let's grab coffee. Today, the person on my team, we had a Zoom with a client. They were talking about an insurance illustration, and our insurance guy was on, and we're talking through it. We're going to end up having to run a few other scenarios through a few other things. She said, hey, why don't you guys come back? I'll show you right now how you run that. You don't have to do that. Okay, but at some point, she had to ask somebody, how do you do this? Right? Answering those questions for the newbies that they don't know to ask goes a long way. Invest in yourself. Okay, invest in yourself. That can mean, hey, when you get into the workforce, buying yourself, this gentleman here, buying yourself a nice suit, buying yourself a nice work, at least just one decent outfit that when you're going to the important client meeting, you look good, you feel good, you play good. Okay, I don't wear this to work. I wore this here tonight, right? I don't want to be presented. The image you present in the world is important, right? Whether it's investing in an iPad so that you can do things, buying yourself a decent computer so that you can work from home, buying yourself, I can do my job with a laptop. Having my big extra second screen isn't mandatory, but it makes my job a heck of a lot easier. Spend that $100 to make your life easier. Invest in yourself. Whether it's going to be something, the finance world, the wealth management world, some firms are going to want you to have that SIE before you get there. Right? Invest in yourself. Whatever that means, it can mean. The different examples. It might not seem like it pays immediate dividends, but it will. Invest in yourself. Enjoy the ride. Okay, and that's my last piece of advice. It's been fairly quick. I want you guys to ask questions after this, so online, please do too. About anything, but enjoy the ride, right? So when I first graduated FDU with my bachelor's and MBA, I did not want to be a financial advisor because one, I thought it was you had to sell annuities to your cousins, and then you try to make it from there. I always thought that I would be a decent in management, right? I seem to kind of know people, but I took a mergers and acquisitions class in my MBA program. I wanted to go work on Wall Street, be Gordon Gecko, Anderson, right? I wanted to be in management. I wanted to be the leader of the people. Okay. Put my time in, and then as of about a year and a half ago, there was an opportunity where I could be. So my boss Brian Teague, who Jack's met, and some of you might have met. He's been here. He'll probably be here at some other place. I had an opportunity to take a different role where it could lead to being kind of the second in command of our region. And then from there, go to upper management. And then take it. I like where I am. I like where I am. I like what I'm doing. Every job has headaches. It's a matter, it's finding out what headaches you want to deal with. I know the headaches I have to deal with. I see the headaches he has to deal with. I think I like my headaches more at this point. But so enjoy the ride. You don't need to have it all figured out. About 4 or 5 years into my first job at EY, I really didn't think I wanted to do financial advising. Really didn't. At the ripe old age of like 28, I thought it was too late to switch careers. So I just stuck with it. I'm happy I did. I really do enjoy what I do. I'm at a different firm and a different dynamic now, right? But that's my message is enjoy the ride. Enjoy the good times when they come. Always learn from the bad times, because if you don't get that out of it, it's just going to be a real bad time. That's my letters to my younger self. I don't know if that's quick. I don't know how long I was supposed to. I think I should ask you how long.
You got a lot of time.
Listen, I mean, everything from the classes I've had here to applying to resumes. I've been on interviews. Our last class of 6 or 7 people, I think 4 were from FDU. So we do recruit heavily. What can I answer? I mean, like I said, dialogue's a lot better than talking to you guys. Right? I was able to do that for say 20 minutes. So let's talk for another half hour. And I know it's hard off the top of your heads to just think of questions, but I'll tell you, whether it's about my time here, my time at EY, what I like, what I don't like, you guys, it's an open, ask me anything if you will.
I'm just with Bob, sorry, I'm kind of a little late, I had another meeting, but you said you used to work at EY, so what is the difference between EY and Goldman Sachs, like that, and what's obviously very big firms?
Yeah, so listen, EY's at heart is an accounting firm. They're actually breaking up. You see that they're breaking up the audit.
So you're thinking like audit professor talked to me about it. It's like the scandal. I think with continuing education grants really.
I think it's the so when you're at EY, right? And I am an answer.
Yeah.
When you're at EY, you can't own the individual stock of anyone that they own. They own a lot of big firms. So the transaction, when they're doing mergers and acquisitions, consulting and accounting for people that they can't do that for any firms that are also audited by you. So I think they determined that the transaction business and the audit business will both make more money if they are separate firms. So at Arthur Accounting Firm. So while I was there, listen, we couldn't have assets under management. Okay, so it was. The state, I told you I moved to Florida. The state of Florida was our biggest client. So what do I mean by the state of Florida? Anyone who has state pension, namely teachers and police officers, were the 2 biggest populations. Okay. It was a call center environment where any of the, I think it's 900, 900, it was either 90 or 900. I know it's, there's a lot of people that get calls, but there was 120 of us sitting around. We got trained to take financial planning calls, and you learn a lot. Okay, but to my boss's credit, he's kind of like, listen, I can't pay you guys $100,000 to sit there and take financial planning calls. It's just not cards. So to my boss's credit there, once you get to a certain level, it's kind of hard. There's a little bit of a glass ceiling there. You couldn't really get to the next level. Whereas at Goldman Sachs, I mean, we're investment people. That's what we do. So that's the award. When we get to these executives, we have a brand new company. The CEO had been a client for a while. He told his people, like, listen, I'm going to put it a little more bluntly and less salesy than the Goldman people that are here presenting to you. You have access to Goldman Sachs, the largest investment bank in the world, the largest investment platform in the world. Use them, right? I don't say that to clients when I'm talking to them, but it's not wrong. There's just more room for advancement. I was one that was willing to work a little harder if it meant a little more dollars in my pocket. I was the guy that was, you want me to work out of school? I was like, you want me to work 80 hours a week? I'll do it. I didn't get that at Ernst & Young, right, at UI, but there wasn't a lot of opportunity for the next level. So I learned a lot, took what I learned and was able to kind of excel in my career.
That's what Thank you.
Yeah.
Not a question. Well, how was your experience here?
I enjoyed it. My father got the same 2 degrees from the school. He had a bachelor's in economics and an MBA in finance going way back in the late 70s. I applied early decision. I liked it. I got accepted, and in a admittance of being a little lazy, I went, I like it. Got early accepted. Let's do it. And I kind of end this whole college search journey early, right? I don't regret my time here. I did live on campus. Sometimes I wish there was a little bit more in terms of social life that some of the bigger universities had to offer, but that's probably a little bit more when I was in school and call it my 20s. Now looking back, the class size, I think you get much more out of the smaller class sizes than you do at the big universities where you're in a lecture hall. Talk about being, accountable. No one cares if you're at those big lecture halls. If you're missing classes here, I never did, but I knew my professors would be reaching out if they knew by name. So that's what I value the most. It's a beautiful campus. It's historic, right? This building. If I could do it all over again, I don't think I would change it. But,
Did you do any extracurriculars at FDU?
I played football my freshman year. I was probably a little bit less in weight, so clearly I was not, truly built for football. I hurt my shoulder going sophomore year. That's not why I quit. But from there, I was always kind of connected with football guys. I lived with 2 guys that still play. My best friend played on the team. I was it was the finance club. I don't know if that's what developed into this.
Actually, no, funny enough, because it developed, I remember I was a member of Finance Club, and I was like my freshman year all the way to the end of it. And then after that, I think it was another club that came in like freshman spring, so CFA club. And then what came into SME was the merger between those 2 clubs. And then our club is still active, but we, in a joint venture with them, we basically help them out with the games. So that's what we had that meeting last semester where we co-hosted with SME. So that's basically the story about Finance Club. I don't know about that.
So I was in the finance club. We did go to it wasn't in New York. I think we went to the American Stock Exchange because it was still around when I was here. I think 2005, 6-ish. I think it was the American. We took it was like 10 or 12 of us that went to Wall Street. Professor Betts, he was the guy that ran. I think now that I think it maybe it's the investment club. I will say things like this, they seem to be more available than they were when I was around. Keep doing things like this. It helps your resume. It does. Keep doing things like this. You'll learn, right? You'll know me. You remember my boss, Brian. You're going to know all that. I've seen all the things on LinkedIn, all the other big firms. You're going to make connections and you're going to have a little bit of an in. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone on Zoom have any questions before I ask my question? That's my question. Because obviously we have some speakers that came in from the past that talked about the CFP exam. Last week we had someone from Big Claim Financial Services talk about that. Would people in like Goldman Sachs, they prefer people to have at least a CFP certification or CFA certification? Because I've heard other people saying, CFA, they would prefer the CFA certification, others prefer CFP, others prefer both. Like, what was your opinion?
It's a good question. So I'll talk a little bit about the career path and how we still call ourselves Ayco because that's who I've been with for years, and there are people. I think the longest standing account managers in our office, and he's been at Ayco for longer than I've been alive. All right, he's been at Ayco for 44 years, something like that. That's 50. So you start as an analyst, which means that you'd be a supporting account manager like myself, right? And it's an apprenticeship model where you kind of learn the job as you go along, right? Hey, I'm trying to think of an example, right? Hey, here's the portfolio over there. We want to bring it over here to determine what the tax implications are going to be, and tell me what else we can do, kind of thing, right? you're not on an island. I'm basically telling you to figure it out so you can go use all the other resources at our firm to do it. To get to account manager or vice president level, you do need a secondary degree or designation. So whether that's CPA, CFP, CFA, MBA, we do have law students that come in with their JD that decide they don't want to practice. So in order to be a vice president and account manager, have your own book, you need some sort of secondary education. Listen, we're unique, right? When I talk to other people in Goldman and tell them I work in Parsippany, they go, I didn't know they had a Parsippany, New Jersey office. I'm like, we're kind of an arm of an arm of an arm. So where we are, quite frankly, do you need, is one going to help you other than others? The class that I started with, it was me and one other guy. I had my CFP, he was a law student that decided not to pass the bar, he was JD, that decided not to. He had an easier time learning the more in-depth estate planning stuff because he kind of knew that, it's more law. Whereas the investment stuff and some of the other stuff from my CFP training, I kind of got that all the way through. Preference, I don't think there's any preference, it's just that it is a requirement to get to the next level within hours. So one of my clients is basically the head of municipal bonds at Goldman. So he's same firm, right? I don't think he actually has a CFA. If he is, he doesn't have it on his email. So is it a requirement? The answer is no, but will it open door? Now listen, I remember having a conversation with my mother. Because I remember getting real upset that my MBA wasn't opening up from FDU, wasn't opening up, doors and doors and doors and doors. And listen, it's not an MBA from Harvard. You're not going to go to Wall Street and walk in as a vice president making 200 grand a year. But the education will only help you; it will never hurt you. That's a long-winded answer to your question. I don't know if there's any kind of preference. But it is some form of next level education is required for where we work. Okay. I'll take an easy question. What do I like most? What do I like least? I mean, it's cliche, but what do I like least? We have a lot of compliance red flags. Sometimes it seems very difficult to do our job. I do try to buy in that, listen, they're there to protect me, right? So that I can't get sued for certain things. That's not always at the forefront of my mind when I'm trying to do business. I don't know if we're understaffed I put an application in 2 weeks ago, it's not done. Like, this is business, this is revenue generating. Listen, every firm's gonna have those kind of annoying parts to it. What do I like best is when you truly help a client and you can see the genuine appreciation from them, it's a great feeling. Like I said, I wanted to kind of go into that mergers and acquisitions field or whatever it was, investment banking. I want to go make a ton of money, right? Once I got a few years in, I'm like, you know what? Self-reflecting. I don't know that I'm quite smart enough to be one of those like super numbers, like being able to crank it out. But I also thought, I'm a little bit better at people than some of those book smart guys. I think that this, and I told my wife, I think that this job is perfect for me because I think it kind of allows me to be able to talk about the investments and talk about things, get to have some intelligent conversations. But I also get to talk to people because we have a ton of resources, right? So where we work, like I said, it's 15% is client facing. So for example, today I told you I had an insurance call. I had a life insurance specialist on the call. Let him get into the weeds on things, and I put it back into everyday human speak kind of thing. Right there, we have investment people that can speak investment nerd with the best of them. To some extent, my job is that okay, let me translate this back into English for the client kind of thing. So what do I like most? It's really fulfilling when you genuinely help a client and you see the appreciation on their face. And I think it combines all the best skills that I have, and I'm able to kind of combine them and really Let me ask you guys, what is your, well, on the Zoom, feel free to answer too. What's your favorite class?
There's a lot. I had a lot of great professors. I want to say it because I get this like I have a bunch of professors I like, so I didn't want to pick the best one.
Do you have it? You guys have
For me, so I'm an exchange student from Germany actually, so I'm only here every for 1 semester. But from the courses I have here this semester, I would say the 2 stand out. One is risk management and insurance, and the other one is climate technology, which is from the wealth management department. And as you actually said, like this combination between the numbers and what's behind, like basically calculating insurance cost premiums, whatever, and then also trying to understand the client, trying to care about his needs, understand his needs. That's the combination I really like. That's just pretty well.
Marcel? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, so like teacher wise.
You don't have to say.
Don't say.
Don't say. No,
Class wise, like, either statistics or personal financial management.
Okay. I look back, I think I enjoyed statistics more than I realized at the time. I still apply it.
Yeah.
My wife's okay.
It's much harder. We make it, enjoy the class, make it much harder than it actually is until you actually try.
Yeah, standard deviation, that you'll take with you. Remember the standard deviation because, the investment returns, that'll actually apply if you're going to personal finance. No, also client psychology, right? A little bit of time, it becomes easier than you think. Okay, and by that I mean, I always tell people, listen, if there's a degree of explaining things from a 1, which is explaining something like a 5, versus 10, which is your CFO client, right? If you start at a level 3, but the client is only at a level 2, it's very hard to kind of go back to confused, to try to be like, okay, stop, right? It's very easy to go from 3 to 8, right? One of probably my top 10 out of say 50 or 60 clients, revenue person, very basic, very basic. She just can't, it's not her thing. She didn't make her money via numbers. So like it's more basic investing. Could she get into some of the more sophisticated things that we do? The answer is yes. Do I think it's best for her? The answer is no. I don't think she's ever fully going to wrap her head around it. And there's nothing wrong with just kind of taking the building blocks and moving. Just a second part of that. Yeah. So for example, right? One of the first lessons at my first APY, right? To being able to explain things in a very easy to understand manner. I'll say it rhetorically unless you really want to answer. If you had to say, what is a stock? Pure, simplest form. It's a portion of ownership of a company. Right? You own a share of Coca-Cola, you own a very small percentage of the company. How about a bond? It's an IOU. You're going to give me this sum of money. I owe you back that sum of money with a little bit of interest, a little bit on top. Simple as that. Right? Taking simple, right? It's simple. Anyone can understand that. Being able to kind of break it down in easy to understand language like that, if you can learn to do that, you're going to have success. Client psychology. I think empathy, putting yourself in the other people's shoes, is something that again it seems very straightforward. And listen, I'll say when I was literally in your seats, right, there's a lot of pieces of advice like show up early that seem very straightforward, right, and do the things you're going to say you do, right. I tell you, it seems very straightforward and almost like duh. But you'd be surprised at how often you don't see that in the real world, right? Following up where you're going to follow up, right? Things like that. Client psychology. Putting yourself in their shoes. Just put yourself in their shoes. Right? Would you do this if you're them, and why not? Right? Today, I don't mind sharing with you. So today on my insurance call with my client, right? So he's a special needs daughter. He knows he wants / needs insurance. He has an offer from another firm. He just went out and kind of shopped on his own. And I said, listen, don't sign it. Let's run what we can run so you can compare it. And our insurance guy got on, and basically, I had some of the newbies sit in my room, right, behind the screen, so they couldn't see what was going on in the Zoom, but they could hear. And we got off, and I'm like, I'm not sold that you should do ours, not theirs. It wasn't a true apples to apples comparison, but I kind of have to go back and tell him, like, what, yeah, that's the first thing. I was not sold. Right? Seems very simple, straightforward. Put yourself in their shoes.
Any questions on Zoom for Chris?
And I would ask, was there any internship opportunities this summer?
That's a good question. For this, I can't remember. So I think for this coming summer, honestly, I think they're already filled up.
Okay.
Pass along, I'll email Jack, pass along my email, and then I can get you in touch with the folks that you can do, get in touch with to apply for both internships and full-time opportunities. I can tell you the folks that interned, they were from all over, one was from like Illinois, one was from Florida. The point is, we gave everyone that was relatively local, and some that were not, that are going to relocate, we gave all of our interns job opportunities for when they graduate this May, December, whatever it is. So we'll get in touch with you, and so I'll get you in touch with the folks where you can apply for it. Whether it's summer of 23 or 24, I think it's 24 now, believe it or not. But yes, I'll get you in touch. Yeah. There's a culture. One of my least favorite classes was in my MBA program. It was a management class. They didn't call it human resources, but it was kind of human resources. I've never been the best at, kumbaya, is everyone feeling? But I am a very big culture carrier at our firm. What do I mean by that? I buy pizza for the new people, right? Things like that goes a long way. Going around inviting people, some of the new people into my client calls. Hey, this is going to be interesting. I send out an email. This is going to be interesting. Come take a look. I can fit 4 in my office. Come on. Right? I used to play softball. I'm now married to a small child. There's fantasy football. We do softball. I think I did basketball. There was a soccer team. We did kickball one year. Happy hours. Listen, no matter where you are, you're going to, I told you, you're going to find friends. You're going to have acquaintances. You're not going to like everybody at work. It's just human nature. But some of those people will become lifelong friends. Anything else?
Anything else, guys? How has your experience been at Goldman Sachs?
Since every day we become more Goldman Sachs and less Ayco. By that I mean, quite honestly, it used to be do a good job and we know all the assets and we'll follow. Now it's do a good job and you should probably get the assets as soon as you can. Not those direct words, but those words. Listen, I like where I work. I'm not planning on going anywhere. It offers flexibility. No one's, for the most part, really watching when you're showing up or not. I just told you someone's always watching. When you get to a certain level, they don't care because your numbers really speak for themselves. But it's a firm where if you work hard, you will be rewarded and get to the next level. That working hard is hard. particularly at ours versus one of the other big firms, you know, Merrill or Morgan. Our pay for call it the analyst position, I don't think is competitive, but I think you get to that next level sooner than you would at Merrill. So again, it's kind of thinking about what you want. I didn't plan it this way, but I was close to being promoted to the vice president when I met my wife. Right, you know, dating a few years and getting married. So I didn't plan it that way. It might have been a little easier for me than someone who's trying to have kids in their mid to early 20s. Stuff. Right? Doesn't mean you can't do it. It comes back to that work-life balance. Right? Work a little harder now, be away a little more now so you can be around a little more later. It's give and take, just like life is. What else?
Anyone else? I actually have another question. I have heard from some people on this kind of isn't a point like counting, but maybe all jobs. I believe some people actually having people go back in the office like 3 quick days, some go hybrid. Like, what's your take on it? Do you feel like you get more experience by going to the office in person, or do you feel like hybrid is like, you know, the way to go now because of COVID and, you know, all the stuff that's going on in the world?
That's an interesting, yeah, that's a good and interesting question because I can tell you my perspective / my management's perspective, and I can tell you who the brain mouse on my team who's winning her out of college from her perspective. We are back more than you are not, which to make my boss very cheeky says 3 is more than 2, so you have to be in the office 3 days a week. Listen, if something's happening and you need to be home, the flexibility is there. You email your boss and you're not there, right? We're back 3 days. I do think if you want to accelerate faster in your career, you need to be in the office. There is no substitute for just going, hey, and could you come over and just look at this thing real quick? I had a new analyst that started in June of 2020. Excuse me. So for the first year of her career, we were not in the office. And I asked her, she said, it's extremely difficult. You hire somebody, and hey, that person's not going to stop what they were doing like they would in the office and just come around to your desk, right? Okay, let's do it at 3. You sign at 3, let's do it at 3. I think we've seen that the more you're in the office, it will accelerate your career. I can tell you, so my analyst is a different girl, but she's been with me a little over a year now, and she started with me. All right, so she's been in the real world for 15, 16 months. She's very much of the mindset that hybrid is the future, and that's what we should be doing, and that it makes no difference. Okay. I was watching CNBC one morning, and Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank was fighting with the CNBC folks. Did you see that? Yeah. And he was like, "No, you're ridiculous. You know, hybrid. Who wants to go move to New York City and pay all the high taxes? And you know, if anyone's going to be able to let you do hybrid because you know you can do it from anywhere." And I think he was thinking of being more the top 10% and those Harvard MBA grads that can walk into a 200. I haven't seen it. Now, if the firm has particular mechanisms in place, and quite honestly, I don't even know what those would be, because we've tried them all, and there hasn't been a substitute for being in person. Now, when I talk about that at CNBC, the girl on my team said, "Oh, I agree with Mr. Marshall," and I went, in my head, I went, "You also don't see that you could be further along than you are." I didn't say that, that's a mean thing to say. But the truth is, the folks that have been in the office more are accelerating quicker. So depends on the company, depends on the culture. Goldman has always been kind of the first to say it. David Sullivan, the Goldman CEO, has been very vocal that the work from home was an aberration in history. It's going to go away and we're going to be back. The creativity and the learning that happens together. I kind of buy into that. I think we're able to have that flexibility now, if when you need it, right? A couple of weeks ago, my daughter had an ear infection. Couldn't send her to daycare, and all right, fine. I worked from home 4 days that week. My boss didn't care, right? I can tell you this week I was at 4, and I'll work from home tomorrow. I can tell you Friday seems to be the standard work from home day. There are very few people in the office, so I told the girl, I said, "Listen, throw Fridays out. I get that if you come here, no one else is gonna be here, so it doesn't make sense. The rest of the days, it behooves you to be. That's my spiel. I will admit, I'm not talking, I'm 38. I tend to be a little bit more old school in my thinking. So that's not the outlook of everyone, but for Goldman, it tends to be, we're gonna be
And the same. In the internship at EY, and like in January, and it was hyped as well. And so the days where I was working in the office, they were just much better for me to learn, to understand, was just more effective. So definitely.
That's that.
Any last questions for Chris, guys?
Anyone? Once, twice.
Somebody, come on.
Wow. Anyone? That is all. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming in here. Let's give a round of applause.
Our host next week for the post something on our basic reputation. Let's go back to the room. Just take a picture.
I gotta say cheese.
Thank you, Chris, so much.
Guys, take a better.
Yes. Members, say hi, I have no announcements to make. It'll be very, very quick, so thank you so much, Chris. Got it.
Yeah, take a pen and a sticker.
I will. Say hi, but it's another WPP points, so.
You know what you got, I can't say.